an evangelism conference for New Zealand. Get inspired, be equipped. Engage Conference, reaching your world one conversation at a time.
Before we start, I would like you all to equip yourself. You need to have pen and paper. I know you got a pen when you came to this conference, but I hope you've got some pieces of paper you can write on. If not, I've got some here. So hands up if you need some paper. Oh, goodness, there's always some. Just chuck them out. You don't need much paper, a couple or so, just for a little thing you will draw later. And you need a partner. You will be working in twos or even threes if you really have to. So grab yourself a partner. Make it a good-looking one. I'm not watching. So work in twos. Are you all partnered up? You all have your sidekick? Good. Well, be really brave and find somebody you have never met before. That might be exciting. My theme for today is one conversation at a time. It's communicating the life-giving gospel, one God-given opportunity at a time. We call that evangelism, but evangelism is never the end goal. It's always a mean to an end. The end goal is growing the kingdom. It's disciple-making discipleship. So that's where we are heading. We need strategy. Thanks. I've got a fan. We need strategies to reach God's goal for our lives and the life of the church. So let's keep that in mind. Following what Marty did yesterday here, who was here for Marty's session? Good. So you've seen that picture, and I reproduced it on that thing there. I'll turn it around in a moment. It's a never-ending circle of activity that the church needs to be involved in to reach the lost. And I will be focusing on field number 1 and field number 2 in the 4-field principle. It's a church planting movement principle, T4T, or no place left as we call it now. There's a lot of names around. It's based on multiplication principles. So I will be focusing on the field 1, the empty field, the entry field, and field 2, the gospel field. Somebody else has to do the other 2. Tony? We need to know our task. Our task is the Great Commission. Our task is a God-given mission to reach the lost. There's a purpose. We need to know a way. There's many ways, but we need to know a way to do it. Be confident in it. Get good at it. And practice. So I will not give you a multitude of options how to do this. I will give you one way. And we will do a bit of practicing with each other, with our partner. So hopefully by the end of the morning, you will feel confident that you're competent to take the gospel out there and help people find Jesus and follow him and love him and be his. Confidence in our competence. To invite into or even initiate spiritual conversations. It's essential to be prepared to pray. If we do it in our own strength, we might as well not bother. We need to do it with the Holy Spirit, in the strength of the Holy Spirit, with his power behind us, in us, going ahead of us, equipping us as we go. So the most important prep work is to pray, and pray some more. It's prepping us, it's prepping the harvest. So it's a two-way thing. There are 2 kinds of people out there. Ying Kai would say. Ying Kai is a T4T leader, an amazing Chinese man. He would say there's 2 kinds of people out there. There's those that know and follow Jesus, and they need training. And then there's those that don't know him yet. Now our job is to help them find Jesus, get to know him, learn to love him, follow him, and then we train them. Simple. Now we come to the 2 fields, field number 1. something I prepared earlier. Somebody gave me permanent marker for that. So I apologize to this church. They will have to scrub very hard to get it back off. Yeah, that was a good one, wasn't it? Well, I wasn't wearing my glasses, so I didn't notice. The 4 fields, entry field. It's the field where we go out there. Now, there's 2 approaches to going. There is my own, in here and out there. In here is my peer group, my network, the people I know. It can be work, leisure, family, far now, my neighbors, the people in my shops, the guys who walk their dogs past my house every day, whoever I have regular contact with. They are part of the in here. What we do to reach them, to be strategic about reaching them, is we make an oikos map. Oikos is the Greek word for household. It just means people I know. Now, in order to be strategic about reaching the people that I do know somehow, I have to pray about them, back to square one. And in order to do that well, I plan this. I have a proper little strategy. And in order to do that, I have a little picture that helps me remember. The blob in the middle is me. Well, in my case, it's me. In your case, it's you, strangely enough. So I start with 5 people, 5 targets. I think that's a good starting point. I pray hard about whom God puts onto my heart and mind to reach out to. In those prayers, at some point, God will say, well, it's Joe. Joe goes to the gym. You see him every Monday morning. Talk to him. I start praying about Joe. And Mary, George, whatever. You get the message. God will give me people that I'm meant to reach out to with the gospel. I pray hard for them to have an open heart and an open mind, for me to have the right words when it is time, and for those opportunities, for that right time to come. When that opportunity comes, I'll do the next step, but that comes later. Now, Joe is not a person in his own right standing in a vacuum. Joe has got a wife, and he's got 3 kids, and then he's got a boss. People around Joe. Now, I will not just pray about me being able to reach out, for God to give me an opportunity to reach out to Joe. I also pray for Joe's oikos, that by and through reaching Joe, I may then reach them also, by Joe reaching out to them eventually. And the same with Mary and George and everybody else. There's always an oikos around these people. They are already in my mind, because remember, there's a strategy behind this. We are into multiplication. We are into expanding the kingdom. We don't want to stop with these 5. We want to reach the world through these 5. Well, my little bit of the world. Now, once I've exhausted the ones I know around these people, I do know there are people beyond that. I deliberately already put empty circles at the end of this that will be filled, hopefully in good time, once I've reached Joe and Joe reached his wife, and on they go. But it is about my awareness of God's strategy, that the world does not stop with my little circle, but it goes beyond that. So it's already with multiplication in mind. That is my oikos map. Now, guess why I gave you those pieces of paper? I want each and every one of you now to draw, create, artistically make your oikos map. I don't want them to be theoretical names. I don't want them to be, just little blobs with nothing in it. I mean you to mean business. Pray with each other in your pairs for God to reveal right now, right here, those 5 or 6 or 7, if you're really, diligent people that he puts onto your mind and your heart to reach out in the coming week or in the coming month, if they are, people you don't reach every day. Get your pen ready, get your piece of paper ready. Right now, right here, make your oikos map. Any questions? Anybody not know what to do right now? I'll give you 5 minutes, well, probably 3, but I don't know, we'll see, to do your oikos map. As I say, I really mean business. would really like you guys to afterwards come to me and say, these are my people, hold me accountable that in the coming month I will contact them and talk to them and try to initiate spiritual conversations. How to do that, I'll tell you later. So, okay, go. How is it going? Everybody sort of getting there, finished? Then let's press on. You can always finish that off later anyway. Pray plenty and ask God for guidance on that one. So the Oikos map, the exercise we just did, is in here, my circle of influence. If I don't have many of people that are not yet Christians in my circle of influence, and with most long-standing church people that unfortunately is often the case, we don't have any people that we know that aren't Christians yet. We then have to resort to going out there, the famous or infamous door knocking, going into the marketplace, scary stuff. Not really. We call it household of peace search or person of peace search. It's finding those people out there, those God-prepared people that God has prepared for us to reach. And there are some, believe me, there is plenty. Again, to start that off, we don't just go out there and babble at them. We start with prayer. Whatever we do in God's name, we do in His power. So we pray for God to guide us. So we call that prayer walking. I suppose you can do it from home, but it's much more fun when you go out there and actually walk through your neighborhoods or hang around in the market square and pray. I call that loitering with intent. Great fun. It is to prepare me and to prepare them. We ask for the Holy Spirit's guidance to show us who it is and to give us opportunities. When we have done plenty of that, we go prayer knocking or prayer loitering. We do it in twos, 2 by 2s. It's biblical, it's safe, it's sensible, so why not? As somebody will do this afternoon, I think. They will definitely go out in twos and do stuff together. Somebody just once said to me when we came back from one of those sessions where we took them out, and that particular person was rather purple-bluish before we left because he was so scared. And when he came back, he was just, wow, God, this was amazing. It's just like talking to people. Well, duh. It is just talking to people. Yes. Household of peace or person of peace search. Well, person of peace for starters, but it hopefully turns into household of peace. We need to know what kind of soil we've got. In the Bible, it speaks of different kinds of soils, the not so receptive ones and the really receptive ones. We need to have a strategy to find out how to find out whom have I got in front of me, to know what kind of way of engaging to engage. Marty spoke of traffic lights yesterday. Sorry, that is now hopping over a little. The red people, yellow and green type people. It's quite practical, really. The red ones is, oh no interest whatsoever. Now it's important to know, as I say, how to handle them. The red guys, girls, people, you're just very polite, very kind and friendly. It's bless you and goodbye. You do not want to become a thorn in their flesh. You do not want to add to the aggravation that's already there for whatever reason. They're just not yet ready for you. So don't bother them. You're sweet, you're kind, and say, have a great day, God bless, and go. Yellow people, they are the open ones. They are the ones that are not, yes, please, but they are, I'll give you 10 minutes. Tell me what you have to say. They are brilliant people. They can turn into green people quite easily, but again, there has to be a strategy to help them make that journey. And then you have green people who are the ones who say, what must I do to be saved? They are great, but not that many of them, really. Yes, we are now the yellow ones. There's things you can offer to help them. I love to use the phrase, can I help you to make an informed decision. It's something, we like to engage our brains, they like to engage their brains. You know, let's acknowledge that they have got a brain to engage, and let's use that. So what can we offer? Hang on. 111, my story, testament. It's been mentioned umpteen times by now. Somebody said today, even in 3 minutes, well, we've cut it down to 1 minute. It's for a woman, it's very challenging. For me, it's impossible, but some people master it. First, the first initial approach is, of course, listening. That has been mentioned a few times as well. We listen to their story, earn their respect, and earn the right to then tell them our story. So once they've told you their story, first it gives you a way in. You have some understanding of whom you're talking to and how to engage with them, where their heart is, what they love, what they hate, where their needs are. So that's a way of then forming your testimony, your story, in a way that connects with theirs. Are you with me on that one? Do you hear what I'm saying? His story, the gospel. By all means, if there is an interest, and a lot of people, as we've heard this morning, are spiritual. They are not Christians. They really don't want to go into institutionalized religiosity, but they're spiritual. So give them the love story of Jesus for them and for this world. Help them understand who made the universe and why it is so important to get to know Jesus. And, well, we come to that later. And then if they are still with you and say, yeah, that sounds really interesting, then you offer them a DBS, a Discovery Bible Study, means and ways of getting to know Jesus better, falling in love with him. And if they do say yes, you make sure you offer that Bible study within a week. Time is of the essence. And Stories of Hope is a name for some good stories about Jesus' character, to create a rounded picture of his character for them to have the opportunity to fall in love with him, to get to know him. But I can't go into DBSs today, how to do them and all. That just is firstly not the remit, and secondly it would take me too far. Green light ones. They are the fun people. When they don't necessarily fall onto their knees to say, what must I do to be saved? Well, I have never had one of those. But when they say, that's just, yes, we did actually have one who sat in a cafe in a mall, and he was scribbling on his paper, doing something, who knows what. And when we hit the mall, this loitering with intent business, and he was sitting there, and he looked up at us, and he waved us over. And we sort of, whom is he sort of waving to? Well, obviously us. So we then went over and sat down. He said, sit down. And it was rather strange. It was rather strange. But that really was one of those God appointments where we really felt like God was putting us together because he was ready to be saved. And he said, what have you got to say? And we gave him our stories and then the gospel. And he just soaked it up and was just so ready. And there was then short-term and then long-term discipleship afterwards. It was just delightful. Well, I would be lying if I would tell you that happens all the time, but it can happen. Short-term and long-term discipleship is what you offer. You first do the commands of Christ, and then, it goes into the long-term discipleship of doing the whole Bible, really. It's a lifelong learning, isn't it? But that is down here, and I'm not going to touch that either. Now, the question, of course, is all good and nice to say, when you've got somebody who wants to know, you bring them to the Lord. But how do you engage in the first place? How do you actually break the ice? How do you initiate spiritual conversations that are not offensive, that are sensible to cultural differences, that help us engage with people on that deeper level? Now, for that, I have got some handouts, if I can find them. And I've got possibly not enough now because of the group that was cancelled. I probably don't have enough.
I'll get some more done
Yeah, thank you. Give me one. Asking questions is key to effective evangelism. Well, we know that, don't we? Ask questions and then listen. Then ask some more questions. Questions are a great way to start a conversation with people. They are also the only way I know to find out where people really are at, in the spiritual side of their life. Here's some possible questions to use. And I like this. This is so practical. You can practice them in front of the mirror. And then, you feel confident that you've got some good questions to ask. Tell me your God story. Has God ever shown up in your life? Have you ever felt close to God? Do you feel far from God or close to God? Would you like to be close to God? What about the spiritual side of your life? Do you think the spiritual side of life is important? Have you ever thought much about God? If you could live your life over again, what would you do differently? How would you feel if you lived your whole life and missed the point? Is there something in your life you would like me to pray about? For those who say they are atheists, that is the beginning. What leads you to believe that God doesn't exist? For those who say they are agnostics, why do you think we can't know if God exists? They are open questions. They are questions where they can tell you what's really going on in their lives. That is important. And then listen well to the answers and ask some more questions. Don't just assume you understand what they're saying, because jargon doesn't just happen in church. It happens out there as well. They say one thing, but actually they imply something very different with that. Ask loads of questions. Really get to know where they are at. Don't assume, especially cross-cultural. It's a minefield if you assume you understand what they mean by certain words. So if in doubt, always ask some more questions. Now the other one, that second thing on that piece of paper, a pattern to follow. That is a good one to just bring conversations around. Bless, nice. Body, how are you? Asking after the physical health, showing interest in what's really going on, how they're feeling. Labor, how's work, school? What is going on in your life? Then the next is sort of a little bit deeper. How are you feeling about things in your life? That is sort of a bit more close to the bone. Social, how are the relationships in your life? Children, friends, well, that, it gets, you see that, don't you? It gets closer and closer into the real stuff. And then, eventually, how is the spiritual side of your life? And you are where you want to be. Now, I can appreciate this is a bit like platitudes or prescriptive. It is not, you don't have to ask these questions, but questions that ask for those kind of things. It's a blueprint in principle, not a letter of the law. Do you understand the difference? Good. Can you try this out in your pairs, please? Just see how, that's why I said sit with somebody you don't know. See where this takes you. If you actually ask along those questions, where do you go with the conversation? Just so when you go out there next week, you've done it once before. You know how to do this. Because often practicing makes masters, makes perfect, and you feel, yes, I've done this, I can do this. Okay? If you sit next to your partner, your husband, wife, whatever, swap with somebody else maybe, makes it a bit more exciting, if you dare. Okay, off you go. I give you 2 minutes or 3. Well, can I be really rude and rope you back in? You can continue that conversation later. By the racket you're making, you're having some fun. It's interesting what you find out about people, isn't it? And to actually engage in an easygoing, unconfrontational, inviting manner is really quite eye-opening, because nobody feels offended. Right. Are you aware? Is everybody aware of why I just did this exercise? What this is supposed to achieve? To help you, engage in open questioning, so you can bring a conversation around to something spiritual. And do you think you can do that? Yeah. Do you have some idea of what's behind the principle behind this? Brilliant. Now the next, it's good to have skills and tools, isn't it? The next tool the 111 My Story, the testimony. I mean, it's as old as houses. But the T4T, or No Place Left movement, has tried to cut that down more and more. We started with 3 minutes, well, the men anyway. And then we cut it down to 1 minute. It's hard. It's not easy because there's so much you want to tell them. But really, we don't want to bore them to tears. It is important to have a story that is concise, that is short and sharp and snappy and exciting. Now, if you then do go over and make it even 4 minutes, nobody will be offended, but you keep eye contact. You make sure you take that person with you. So it's, as I say, it's principles. It's not a straitjacket. If the person that you're talking to is really interested in you, by all means, give them some more of yourself. The more you give, the more real the relationship will be. But start off with a short and snappy one, and then you can always go a bit further. Now again, handouts. And again, there's possibly, it might be enough today, actually. This is a very simple piece of paper that helps you write your own testimony. On the back, you've got the instructions, and on the front, you've got a little, like, what could you call that, diagram, where you fill in your details. As you can see, I filled mine in, and that is supposed to help you to keep it really short. Well, can I give you mine as an example, just as an example, not a blueprint. Before 15 seconds, you put 2 words there, or 2 concepts. Mine are 1, unwanted, 2, unloved. I was the second of twins. My mum didn't know she was having twins. When my brother had popped out and the doctors told her to hang around a bit longer because there's another one coming, she really fell into depression. She didn't want me, and the family joke throughout my childhood was, if I could have given you to any of the nurses, I would have just given you away. Ha ha. Was funny maybe for her, it wasn't funny for me. I grew up believing I have to earn the right to be alive, which is not a good place to be in, really. So I then felt very unloved. And I always felt I have to coax people into liking me, into loving me, which brought with it a whole host of misdemeanors and, well, long story. Then, one day when I was really quite depressed and suicidal as a young adult, God brought a young man into my life. Oh, he was gorgeous. And he had joy, peace, confidence, and an understanding of his value that was just like, whoa. And I wanted a piece of that. So I said, what is that about you? Why are you what you are? And he says, well, let me introduce you to my very best friend, Jesus. Jesus came into my life, he says. He came into this world. He's the Son of God. He came into the world. He died on the cross, was buried and rose again to save the world. All of us, inclusive me. And I decided that's good enough to make him boss of my life, and so I did. And since then, my life has been transformed. You can have the same life. Do you want that kind of life, that kind of purpose, that kind of love? Just, yeah, only too true do I want that. So I also decided to make Jesus my boss. And since then, my life has, well, not been the same, I can tell you that much. Would you like that kind of purpose and love and assurance that you are not an accident, but part of God's plan for this world? Yeah? Do you? Well, I know it's not a minute, but it's close enough. Right, guys, your turn. Write down your little story onto that side of the piece of paper so you can then practice your story. You have it nice and concise, and you can go and find yourself a mirror or your partner, or, we will do that in a moment in pairs here. But practice is always a good thing. I put in the middle, and that's what T4T suggested, a cross, the down and up arrow, and a crown to remind us of the God story in the middle of our testimony. Do you understand those symbols? The cross, Jesus died, the down and up, he was buried and rose again, and he's boss of my life now. It just reminds you that bit has to be in your testimony, because it's not really about you, it's about what Jesus has done for you. So you have to have that in your testimony. Go, go, go. I give you 5 minutes for that. Okay, can I have you back, guys? I've only about 5 minutes left. You can continue afterwards. Otherwise, I'll be in trouble with the boss. Well, any of them, they'll all be, giving me grief. Did you find that exercise helpful? Does it give you some idea of how to do this? Can I have your promise? I mean, you're all sitting here to learn stuff and to really become proficient at this. Can I have your promise to go, when you go back, to really practice, because that makes perfect. Start with your own family. Say, I learned a new skill, something that helps me share the good news. Can I practice on you, please? Start with mom and dad and granny and then go outwards to your friends at work and leisure and wherever outwards in your trust maybe. And at some point, it will swap over into those people that you barely know at all, the people in your shops or whatever, and you find it is as easy as falling off a log. It really is, and the more you practice, the better you get at it. My story is never the same, but that doesn't matter. I tell it. That matters. Obedience. Jesus did not say, know the Great Commission or know what I've taught you. He says, obey what I've taught you. That means we have to do it. Are you agreeing with me? I love you. Right, 2 skills we've learned today. Tell my story. What was the other one? Come on. Yellow, green, to ascertain whom we are speaking to, and also to how to engage with more generic questions and bring it round to more spiritual questions. Do you feel you have learned something that you can apply and you will be equipped? Good. Oikos map. You've all got your Oikos map. It's another skill, another tool. Continue on that journey. Make it bigger and pray into it and apply the same principles. Go and talk to those guys. It is just like talking to people because it really is just talking to people. Household of peace and people of peace search. Going out there, applying what we've just learned to find the people God has prepared for us to witness to and hopefully bring to Him. Do you think you can do this? I see all your faces. I know who's here today. I want to see you all out this afternoon going onto that trip into wherever they are taking you to share this, to apply what you've just learned. I'll check with them. If you haven't been, I'll come after you. If there are still gaps, and there will be plenty, I mean, there's loads of stuff that I couldn't even touch on today. The DBS is really important because evangelism is only the wedding day. Disciple-making discipleship is the marriage, is what we do this for. But I can't go into that today. But I can go into that next time you invite me to your church or to your house group or wherever. Okay? Yes, we do. Church Army. We do. And otherwise, I'm still around until tonight. Talk to me. We'll connect. I have been born to teach, not to teach, but to spread this stuff around, to train people. Not to teach, actually, to train people. So please avail yourself of our organization to help you with this. Is there anything else I should still mention? Oh, my brain is going blank. Yeah, talk to me. Any more questions? Any more questions at all? Yeah, go on.
So when you initially the network map, right, and you're praying about who to put on your network map, those 5 people.
Yeah.
You look for people who are already kind of soft to the Lord. You can kind of see interest, like, because in my 5 network guys, I've got one guy who he has known the Lord, but he's not there now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you put those kind of people.
Well, but the sheer fact that person comes into your mind, I think the Holy Spirit is telling you something, isn't He? Now, there is actually, if you want to be really diligent, you can have 2 of those maps. The one for your non-Christian contacts out there, and one for the training maps. Remember, I said there's 2 types of people. The ones that know Jesus and love Him, and you train them to do this stuff to become more effective. And then there's the guys who don't know Him yet, who need to get to know Him, so in order to then train them eventually. If you really want to take this serious, you have 2 running alongside each other. Your training stream, where you say, God, I know this guy has got gifts. If he only utilizes them, help me to help him get involved in this. And then the other circle or map. You know, I think it looks a bit like a spider web, really. Well, I know I'm a bit weird. You know, where I say, these are people I know, and I would love them to love Jesus. God, give me opportunities. Does that answer the question to some degree? Anything else? Well, my time is up. I don't want to bore you any longer. I thank you very, very much. You have been a brilliant audience. This was my first personal appearance in public, and I've been so nervous. But you made it a joy.
Well done, Monika. You are a champion.